All right, good morning, AP Calc BC. Welcome to week 2 of remote learning. Hope you had a restful weekend, and hope you and your family are doing well. Hope everyone's safe and hope everyone's healthy. With that, you may have seen an announcement this weekend or Friday afternoon from the College Board. I'm going to break that down for us and how that affects our class, and then talk to you about how we're jumping into AP review. We're basically done with all new content. So from here on out, it's all just reviewing things that we've learned before. So follow along with me in the PowerPoint, and then I'll see you in the Zoom call in a little bit. Here's our agenda for the video. Major changes to the AP Calc BC exam, broader review of topics, and also breaking down review. I have a temporary provisional schedule mapped out for us to use to review these next few weeks. And so we'll go from there. Then during our Zoom call, I'll take any clarifying questions you have on the exam changes. And then I want to try breakout rooms for the classwork. There's 5 questions on the classwork. And I think breakout rooms might be more productive than just people asking me questions. And I can jump between the breakout rooms to help out there. So major changes to the AP Calc BC exam. As you see in the PowerPoint, there are 3 major changes: content assessed, exam dates, and the exam format. Some of these I don't have the full details about yet because the College Board has not released them. Some of them I do. So I'm going to cover what we do know. First off, the units that are assessed on the original BC exam are units 1 through 11, starting with limits, ending with series, like we just finished off with the integral test. The big changes are these. There is no parametric or polar coordinates on the BC exam. So we can actually cut any teaching of polar coordinates and focus on reviewing just the content you see in units 1 through 9. And then you'll see in unit 11, there's actually select topics that we'll need to review. And there's some topics that we've had a little bit of tough time with in the past that won't be on there, so that's good news. So let's see what that's about. So here's all the content that we've learned in Unit 11. Very long unit, very heavy unit, a lot of new stuff. That's what we've learned. And only the highlighted rows or bullets that you see are being assessed. If you go to the College Board website, they break this down, and those same topics are the only topics that are assessed. So they actually don't cover the integral tests like we learned. There is one tiny typo on my slide here though. Improper integrals, they do cover. The way I taught it, it was not part of unit, it was part of unit 11, but they do cover improper integrals, but not the integral tests. That is exempt from the exam, along with everything else that is not highlighted. That is what I know from the College Board, and we're going to use that to target our review. In terms of exam dates, our original exam date was May 5th, 2020 at 8 a.m. The new test dates have not been released, so I don't know when those are going to be, but we're going to just keep that May 5th deadline in mind. I don't think that their second test date can be before that. That would not be fair to make you take the test earlier than they originally assigned. I don't think that would be appropriate. So the original test format is just like the IAs that you've taken: 3 hours, 15 minutes, 60-minute non-calc, 45-minute calc, 30-minute calc, 6-minute non-calc. For those of you that don't really like long tests, I don't think anyone likes long tests, but the new test format rather, is 45 minutes, and it's all free response. So that's good news because it's a shorter exam. A little bit tougher news because it's free response, and that's a lot less predictable than multiple choice. Makes the test a little bit harder, but I've studied a lot of FRQs in the past. We've practiced quite a few FRQs this year. I think we're going to be able to do really well on that exam when it comes up. The other thing I haven't quite figured out from the College Board is they are saying that these will be able to be taken from home. So what that means is a couple things. They have to make it possible for multiple people to take it. Since it's a math test, I think it needs to be done on paper. And then the third piece is I imagine they're going to change the questions up between exams because of the difficulty in preventing people from using their cell phones to communicate during the exam and things like that. So I imagine we'll need to be really prepared because they're going to have a bunch of different tests. You might have a different test than someone else in the class. That's just my hunch. I don't know exactly. We'll get more information from the College Board in a few weeks while they adapt all these things to the entire country. And so with that, just doing a quick big picture overview of all the topics you've learned this year and last year, and then break down how we're going to cover those over the next few weeks. So again, here are those 11 units that we've covered. And then for each unit, I'm just going to break down what are like some of the quick subtopics within those, and then I'll show you how we're organizing them for review. So for limits, there's limit notation, which you're very familiar with. Estimating limits from graphs and tables, determine limits with properties, algebraic manipulation. There's the squeeze theorem. We'll cover that kind of towards the end. It's a very kind of tough lesson, but we'll save that for the end. Discontinuities, continuity, limits, vertical asymptotes, horizontal, limits and horizontal asymptotes, and intermediate value theorem. That's unit 1. For unit 2, there's interpreting the derivative. What does it mean in context? There's the limit definition of derivative. Then there's the concept of differentiability, the mean value theorem, horizontal vertical tangents, equation of tangent lines, and average rate of change / approximating the derivative. That's the first unit where we learned about the derivative. Then we practice all those different ways of calculating the derivative. There are basic derivative rules, product rule, quotient rule, chain rule, implicit differentiation, and derivative of the inverse. Then there was unit 4, graphic analysis, starting with the extreme value theorem, absolute extrema critical points, increasing, decreasing, relative extrema concavity, and points of inflection. That tends to be the toughest unit for derivatives because it's a lot of information, a lot of mathematical flexible thinking. So we'll make sure we dive deep on that. Then there's applications of derivatives. You remember there's 5 topics in unit 5. They are rectilinear motion, linear approximation, L'Hopital's rule, related rates, and optimization. That is where we started our calculus journey this year, back in August, September. So that's where we're picking up from this year. We do need to know units 1 through 4 though. Then there's unit 6 where we introduce the integral. There's interpreting the integral and limit definition of the integral. There's also Riemann sums, trapezoidal approximations, integrals geometrically, over-under approximations, integral properties, evaluation theorem, accumulation function, and the fundamental theorem of calculus, and then sometimes with the chain rule. That was unit 6, really strong unit. And then we moved into unit 7, methods of integration. We started with our basic antiderivatives, simplify the integrand, anti-chain rule, long division, partial fractions, U substitution, integration by parts, and then also average value. That was where we started tracking our mastery on Eichs-Tiggets throughout the unit. We did really well with that by the end of the unit. Unit 8 was differential equations. We introduced differential equations, slope fields, initial final value formula, Euler's method, separable Diffie-Qs. That's the tough Diffie-Qs, FRQ types, and then exponential and logistic growth. Then we got to unit 9, particle motion with integrals, net change, initial final value problems, area between curves, volumes with cross sections, volumes revolution with washer and disk. And then also there's a quick tiny topic we need to cover, which is arc length of a curve. That still is fair game for BC. You will not need to know total distance for parametric though. Those are very related. Then we skip unit 10 completely. No parametric like we covered at the beginning of this unit, and no polar, like I said, we would kick to later in the year. We just don't need to teach it because it won't be assessed this year. Unit 11 on series, there's sequences, series, geometric series, p-series, alternating series tests. That should just be tests, not tests. Ratio tests, Taylor polynomials, and improper integrals. And that's what we need to know for series. With that, breaking down review. Since we learned everything in units, we're gonna try to learn things a little bit differently so we can put all the pieces together. So I'm gonna break this down by week, and then I'll break down, break this down by week and then break it down by day within each week. So week 30 is going to be pretty heavy on the calculation front. It's going to be evaluating limits, derivatives, integrals, limit definition of those two, equation of tangent lines, Taylor polynomials, approximating functions, approximating derivatives, approximating integrals, and convergence tests. Those are all pretty straightforward ways of thinking mathematically. They're all calculation based. So that's what we're going to cover this week. So we can access the harder content in the next 3 weeks. Keep in mind for our timeline here, we do have an extra week after week 33, just to do a bunch of practice putting it all together. So we are moving at a pretty quick pace, but you'll see each Friday is going to be a cumulative review and a chance to slow down. And also keep in mind, this is not new content. This is all review. So there's going to be things on this list. You got it down. Product rule. I'm pretty confident in our ability with product rule. There's going to be things that are tough and we're going to need to review, leverage YouTube a little bit. I'll try to make as many review videos as possible to help out. So we'll go from there. With that, the next week we'll focus on applications. That was mainly Unit 5 and Unit 9, applications of derivatives, applications of integrals. Then week 32, we'll focus on graphic analysis, and week 33, we will loop in back to differential equations, and then we'll go from there. So this week, we're going to start with evaluating limits, derivatives, and integrals. That's what your classwork is focused on today. And then your exit ticket is an opportunity to provide me with feedback about what to focus on tomorrow, a little bit of review. Things that you are stuck on, things I can create extra practice for, so I can respond to what you're getting stuck on. So we don't need to focus on what we're not getting stuck on. Tuesday will be equation of tangent lines, which connect with Taylor polynomials, and then we'll use those to approximate functions. And then we'll also quickly go over how to approximate derivatives and integrals from a table. You're really strong with that. Wednesday, we're going to zoom back out, think about all of our convergence tests, but we're going to cross out the ones that we don't need to know per the latest changes from the College Board. Thursday, we'll cover limit definition of derivative and integrals. We haven't really touched on these. They rarely come up, but I want to make sure we spend at least one day on it, mastering it. So that'll feel a little bit like a new lesson. Then Friday, we'll put it all together with a cumulative review. Following week, I'll cycle back to these, but I'll slowly click through them now so you can pause and check them out. We'll cover each of these each week, and if we need to move some things, we'll move some things. Still figuring out my pacing for these online lessons, so open to feedback in the exit tickets. Just let me know. I'm going to read those every day and adjust my video the following day. Here's week 32. Here's week 33. And that concludes just our breakdown of the review for each week, moving towards May 5th. And here's what we're focusing on this week. As always, super open to feedback, super open to hearing how to make this a better learning experience for you. And I'll see you in a few seconds.